Bald man was suddenly surprised to find that he could actually catch the bullet. Just now a madman was pointing a gun at a woman not far away. The man saw that something was wrong. He jumped at the woman. Luckily, neither of them was hurt, but strangely enough, the bullet was nowhere to be seen. At this point, the man makes an excuse to leave, and the bullet was caught by him. His name was John. Finding out he was so good, he wanted to prove it. He went to the baseball stadium. He activated the launch button. A baseball flew quickly towards him, and to his surprise, he caught it. He was so excited. He tried several more times. Each time, he caught it with perfect accuracy, so he cranked up the launch speed to maximum. The machine began to shake violently, and there was a thud. John not only caught the baseball, he crushed the ball. His best friend Nick thought he was doing a magic trick. He didn't believe it, so he actually pulled out a gun and pointed it at John. And after much verification, John was convinced that he really did have superpowers, and Nick was even more excited than he was. "You're like Superman. Try and see if you can fly." John was a little hesitant, but he finally said yes. He opened his arms wide. He jumped from the top of a 100-meter high building. He thought he could really fly, but he fell headfirst to the ground. He crashed into a big hole in the concrete. He can't fly, it seems, but John was unharmed. He patted the dust off his body, but what he didn't expect was that jump triggered a second superpower. He looked to the sky, and with a jump in place, he jumped straight to the roof of the building. The two of them hugged each other in excitement. They decided to use his powers to do something good. At this moment, a group of robbers were driving away in a car. John got the news and rushed over. He stepped in front of the robbers' car, but the robbers didn't give him a second thought. They were ready to run over him, but John had his hands out to stop them. But the next second, the robbers took the opportunity to escape, and John walks away in disarray. After this battle, Nick decided to train John. He bought a used car for $100 to train John's superpowers, but as a result, they failed over and over again, and finally gave up. But the day Nick arrived at the bank, and there was a robbery. He rushed to call John for help, but before he could say anything else, he was spotted by the robbers. John leapt to the overpass, just in time to see Nick being stuffed into the car by the robbers. As they passed over the bridge, John leaps down. It's the same story again, although he was still knocked down by the car, but he lifts the car up, and then overturned it. He managed to save Nick, and at the same time, John's wife had also discovered her powers. She is the woman who is faster than the Flash. Eats a dozen loaves of bread in just 1 second. It takes a normal person 3 hours to do the cleaning. She still does it in 2 seconds. Never drives to work. Just a little acceleration and she's at work in no time. Her name is Anna. 2 days ago she was an ordinary scientist, but this morning she accidentally gained a superpower. Whenever she runs, everything around her seems to stand still. When she passed a car, the belt just touched the rearview mirror, and it shattered instantly. So you can imagine how fast she is. When she found out she was different, she immediately told her colleagues about it. And then there were papers floating down the corridor. In order to find out about Anna's superpowers, the colleague tested Anna's running speed with a tester. The first lap was 602 kilometers per hour. On the second lap, she increased her speed to 718. The colleague couldn't see Anna at all. All she could see was the dust flying. With her superpowers, Anna's life has become incredibly easy. She was able to get home in a flash during her workday, help her son with his homework. It only takes 2 seconds to do the housework. But what she didn't know was that she had to concentrate when she used her powers. Otherwise, the fall would have been terrible. The fall hurts Anna's shoulder, but suddenly something magical happened. Anna's wound healed quickly. She was blessed. She unlocked a second superpower. Both she and her husband felt strange. Why did they suddenly have superpowers? It all started with the plane accident 2 days before. The couple wanted to take their 2 children on a trip, but soon after the plane took off, they were caught in a storm. The plane plunged into a lake uncontrollably. Luckily, they had put on life jackets in advance. They were lucky to survive. If that had been the case, then their 2 children would have had superpowers too. An earthquake in supermarket. Father shields his son with his body. It didn't take long. The quake stopped. A salesman was trapped in a pile of debris. The man wanted to go and help, but his son stopped him, because in his eyes, the shells formed various lines, and combined to form angles. The boy quickly calculates the key support point. He tells his father that all he has to do is pull this one out. The father is half convinced. He slowly pulls out the shelf. In the next second, the clutter all fell down, and the salesman really wasn't hurt. The mother asked her son, incredulous, "How did you do it?" But the son lied and said it was probably luck. But in fact, fact it was the boy's superpower. It's called a super brain. His name is Ben. He was originally a study slag, but one day, he suddenly noticed that the questions on the blackboard were glowing, and showed himself the answer. And that's not all. He could also use his powers to play rugby, because in his eyes, everything can be calculated through mathematical formulas. A circle of light appears under the player's feet. The ball thrown shows a parabola. The ball is thrown at various angles. He was so excited, so he joined the team, trying to test out his superpowers. But as soon as he took to the field, everyone didn't think much of him. But then, they were all going to be impressed by Ben's actions. The game starts. Ben has the ball. He looks out. There's an intersection angle on his teammate to his left. His teammates are running towards the open space in front of him. There are instant coordinates in the slot. Ben is about to drop the ball. The corner immediately appears in front of him. He makes a slight adjustment. He throws the ball as instructed. The ball lands in the hands of his teammate. Everyone is stunned. They looked at Ben in disbelief. Even the coach enthusiastically invited him to become an official player, and Ben's class teacher saw this. He immediately called Ben's parents into school. He said Ben might be on drugs. Why else would he be behaving so strangely? It turns out that, since Ben had his powers, he's been getting perfect marks in every exam. The teachers seriously suspected him of cheating, but there was no evidence of this. Plus, this rugby match was even more incomprehensible to the teachers, because Ben had never played rugby before. He was able to pass the ball accurately on the first try, so the class teacher suspected that Ben was using drugs. The couple tried to explain to the teacher, but they couldn't reveal it. It was a superpower. The teacher didn't listen to their explanation, and drove away. But the next second, the teacher's car was hit by a mysterious man. The driver hit and ran, and the teacher was stabbed through the chest with a steel pipe. The steel pipe was too close to the heart. The doctor was too scared to operate. Looking at the teacher who was dying, Ben blamed himself, but suddenly he saw a picture of the teacher's heart in 3DS before his eyes. At once, he had a bold idea. At night, Ben bought medical-related books and started using his super brain to learn about surgery. He found his mom and dad, hoping to use his mother's superpowers to save the teacher together. Seeing her son's determination, the mother was happy to agree. In the evening, they arrived at the hospital. The father was on the lookout. The son and the mother were inside for the operation. Under Ben's guidance, Mom performed a miraculous operation. The operation was completed in seconds. When the doctor came into the operating room, he found that the steel tube that had been inserted into the patient had disappeared, and his vital signs were stable.